Hey, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Shalina, and today I want to talk about the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, otherwise known as Herkid 3.0. Herkid is a nigh impossible reading challenge that's meant to expand your reading, and it's created by Q over at QWordy or QWordy. I'm not really sure how you say the channel name, but I will link the official announcement video in the description so you can find all of the necessary links, the website, all the helpful things from Q down there in that link. The challenge begins on July 7th and goes until July 6th of the following year, although some participants have opted to start on July 1st and go through June 30th of the following year. There are 4 ways to play, and I am choosing the no-nonsense version, which is just the regular version of the challenge. Something to note is that you can use one book to fulfill 2 different prompts. So you have the option of repeating a book one time. Beyond that, you cannot do repeats, and you can't do rereads if you've read it within the last 5 years. One final thing, we do not support the terrible TERF, so please do not use any of her books for this challenge. All right, let's get started with the prompts and the books I have chosen to fulfill these prompts. With all of the repeats that I have done, I am going to be reading about 100 books for the challenge. The prompt for the first square on the bingo board is choose your party. This is for D&D character types, and so you basically pick 5 different character types and pick a book to go with each one. There are several types, so I just picked 5 that worked with books that I could figure out. A lot of these books are going to be ones that I can get from my library or that I already own. I listen primarily to audiobooks for my reading, and so like I have to be able to access them in that way. And some of them I don't actually have access to in that way, so there's going to be a few that I'm going to try to physically read with my eyeballs. But those are few and far between. Most of them are going to be audiobooks. So the first character type that I chose for this prompt was Bard, and I chose Front Desk by Kelly Yang. And Front Desk features a character who wants to be a writer, and that's why I chose it for Bard, because that was one of the options for Bard was author or performer or singer, like something like that. Next, I chose Monk, and for this, I chose A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is part of the Monk and Robot duology, and obviously there's a monk in it, a T-monk, I believe. And then we have Rogue, and this is an assassin type person. So I chose Scythe by Neil Shusterman because, from my understanding, the Scythe people in the book are reapers and they have to kill people. The next one I chose was Wizard, and I picked Uprooted by Naomi Novik for that because there is a wizard or sorcerer type character in the book. And then last, I chose Barbarian, and the book I chose for that was The Fake Divination Offense by Sarah Rash. And this features I think he's an ogre, and he plays like this very brutal fantasy version of football in the world that Sarah Rash has created. The next square is periodic table. And for this, you have to choose 5 elements of the periodic table and books that have that element in the title. So I have chosen The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, and then also The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. Silver, I chose Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. Tin Man by Sarah Winman. And Chlorine, I chose Chlorine Sky by Mahogany L. Brown. The third square features familial terms, so mother, father, son, daughter, those kinds of words. So I picked Cursed Daughters by Oyen Ken Braithwaite, My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyen Ken Braithwaite, Just Like Mother by Anne Heltzel, The Sisters Brothers by Patrick DeWitt, and The Dead Fathers Club by Matt Haig. The fourth square, I have traipsing through regions, and so I have picked the different regions and the books that go with them. So for this, the first one is Middle East, North Africa, and for that I chose The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Next is West Africa, Cursed Daughters by Oyenkan Braithwaite. Central Canada, Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett. Antarctica, Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. And Western Europe, The Quick by Lauren Owen. The final square on the first row of the bingo board is Choose Your Curriculum. And for this, I have chosen the different classes, and I'll kind of explain a little bit about why I chose them. So for English, I have Three Keys by Kelly Yang. This is the sequel to Front Desk, and again, the main character wants to be a writer. The next one is History, and I chose Land by Maggie O'Farrell. This is a historical book, I think set in Ireland. The next one is Science, and I've picked a science fiction book called Homebound by Portia Elan. And then next I picked Math for The Eight by Catherine Neville. And there's something to do with math and chess in that book. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's why I picked it for math. And then Drama, which is a class. I just realized it took me a minute to figure out what my last class was going to be. And I finally was like, I could do drama, and I could do Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, because that follows a troupe of actors. So yeah, that's my Choose Your Curriculum, and that's the last space on the top row. Going down to the second row on the bingo board, we have Road Trip, which this is not just for the United States, but it's for any local area wherever the person may live. You cannot choose the two most inhabited regions or most popular regions. So like if you're in the United States like I am, you can't choose New York and California for the states, but you can pick any other state for this road trip prompt. So I have Florida, and that one is Chomp by Carl Hyacin. Then Minnesota, we have Pink Lemonade Cake Murder by Joanne Fluke. That's set in Lake Eden, Minnesota, and that's like book number 29. Like, I cannot believe I've read this many books in this series, and the love triangle is still not resolved. Oh my gosh. Then we have Ohio, which is Homebound by Portia Elan. And then Maryland, we have First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. And last, we have Georgia, which is Pink Moon by Annabelle Chase and Tina Gray. Next square is Bookception, and that is a book within a book. So basically, you have to read one book, and then that book has to mention another book, and then you go and read that book. So for this, I picked Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And within that book, they mentioned Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. So those will be the two books I read for the Bookception prompt. The next square is one of the larger ones because it has 12 prompts within the one, and it is not so secret prompts anymore. And these are all secret prompts from Herkid 2.0. So the first prompt is read a book outside. I have chosen Blow, Snow, Blow by Rob Scotton. This will just be a really short book that I'll be able to sit outside and read. And then I have craft, which means a craft on the cover of the book, or do a craft while you read. And I don't have any crafts that I do that will take long enough to read like a full book to. So I have chosen a book that has a craft on the cover, and that is Knitted and Knifed by Tracy Drew. And the next prompt is a pun in the title. And I chose Petal to the Metal by Annabelle Chase. Next is a book with a first and last name in the title, Five Things About Ava Andrews by Margaret Dillaway. Then we have a book that you missed in your childhood, either one that was published and you just didn't read it as a child, or one that was published after you were grown and you wished had been published when you were a kid. And I chose for this Front Desk by Kelly Yang. Next, you have to choose something from the I'll Get Around to It tag, and I picked a book that's been on my TBR forever that I haven't gotten to yet, and that is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Then you have to pick a book with the color, a color from Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I guess there's a song, and it lists all the colors of the coat. And so one of those colors has to be in the title of the book you pick. And I picked blue for that. So Hazel Bly and the Deep Blue Sea by Ashley Herring Blake. And then you have to pick a book that has the same title as another book. And so there, I chose for this The Empire of Gold by S.H.R.CYED. There is a book, another book called Empire of Gold out there that I think was published a little before S.H.R.CYED's book. Then I had to go on a doom scroll and find a book on social media to read. And luckily, I came across The Unmagical Life of Briar Jones by Lex Croucher, which was a book I already wanted to read, but it was on a doom scroll post by Books and Lala that I found. I said doom scroll post. I was doom scrolling and I just came across Lala's post. And then a book with motion on the cover. And so for this, I chose Faith Greater Heights by Julie Murphy. It has on the cover a girl flying. And then the next to last prompt is most recent acquisition. And this is the only prompt in the whole of Herkid that I do not have a book chosen yet. And that is because whenever I fulfill this prompt, I don't know what book will be my most recent acquisition. If I were to do it like right now, my most recent acquisition would be The Unmagical Life of Briar Jones by Lex Croucher, but I already have that set up for 2 different spaces. So I can't use that for a third space. So I'm just choosing to leave that one open until I can figure out and get some more books and figure out what I want to do about that space. And then the last prompt in this section is author last name is a first name. So for this, I chose the Quick by Lauren Owen because Owen is also a first name. The next square on the board has us picking books with different cover styles. So for this, the first one I chose was Floral, and I chose Pedal to the Metal by Annabelle Chase. Then I chose Symbol, which is Capricorn by Marion Williamson. And then I chose a book with architecture on the cover, The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. And then lastly, a book with a person on the cover, My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyen Ken Braithwaite. The last square for this row is titular counting, and that means that you go from 1 to 10, and each book has to have that many number of words in the title. So one book with 1-word title, a book with 2 words in the title, a book with 3 words in the title, and so forth. So here are the books I have chosen for this. Oathbound by Tracy Dion. There by Tommy Orange. Thief of Night by Holly Black. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Gin Patrol on the Purple Line by Deepa Anapara. We Are All So Good at Smiling by Amber McBride. Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austin. The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales by John Seiska. Sorry, I forgot to put the name of the author on that one, but I know who it is, so. And then for 10 words, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day by Judith Viorst. Going to the middle row on the bingo board, we have characters to authors. Now, what this means is you take the character of a book, and then that name, whatever that first name is, that has to be the first name of the author of the next book that you read. And then the character from that book has to be the name of the next book, the name of the author of the next book you read after that. There's only 3 books for this one, thank goodness, because that would be a hard chain to keep managing. So I picked Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day by Judith Viorst. That has obviously Alexander as the character. So the next book I picked was School Ship Tobermory by Alexander McCall Smith. And the main character in that book is named Ben. And then after that, we have The Rest of Our Lives by Ben Markovitz. Next square is Shiri Tori titles. And this is where you take the last letter of a title and use it as the first letter of the next title that you read. And then you take the end of that title and use that as the first letter of the next title, and so on and so forth. So what I have read, or not what I have read, but what I am planning to read for this is Life's a Birch by Annabelle Chase. That ends in H. And then I'm going to The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten. You can take titles with the or an or whatever at the beginning and drop that and ignore that for this particular prompt. The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten, and that ends in N. And then I'll read The Nightshade God by Hannah Witten. That ends in D. So I'll read A Dagger of Lightning by Meredith R. Lyons. That ends in G. So I'll read God Killer by Hannah Kaner. And there's only 5 in that one, thank goodness, because that was a hard one to figure out. The very middle square on the board is Herkid Mashup, and this is where you take a prompt from Herkid 1.0 and a prompt from Herkid 2.0, mix them together, and come up with 5 titles to read. So for this, I picked from 1.0 genre. So that means I have to read different genres of books. And then from 2.0, I picked Bigger Rainbow. So that means the color has to be on the cover of the book. So for this, I have Fantasy Green, The Unmagical Life of Briar Jones by Lex Croucher. And then I have Horror Red, Bone of My Bone by Johanna Van Veen. Then I have Sci-Fi Yellow, There Is No Anti-Memetics Division by Quantum. And then I have Litfic Orange, Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. And then I have Romance Pink, A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. Next is numerical titles, where you have to pick a book with the number in the title. And this goes 1 through 10, and then there's an extra space for a random number. So for this, I chose Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead, A Show for Two by Tashi Bouyin, 3 Keys by Kelly Yang, 4 Lost Cities by Annalee Newitz, 5 Things About Ava Andrews by Margaret Dillaway, 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, The 8 by Catherine Neville, 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake by Sarah McLean, 10 Steps to Nanette by Hannah Gadsby, and for my random number, I chose 11, and so it's Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. In the past, Q has done colors on covers for prompts, but this year, it's the color has to be in the title of the book. So here's what I have chosen for the rainbow. Bright Red Fruit by Safia El Hilo, Orange, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson, Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake, Hazel Bly in the Deep Blue Sea by Ashley Herring Blake, Gin Patrol on the Purple Line by Deepa Anapara, Pink Moon by Annabelle Chase and Tana Gray, Red, White, and Whole by Rajani LaRocca, Black Moon by Kenneth Calhoun, Silver Nitrate by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and Darling Rose Gold by Stephanie Roble. The first square in the 4th row on the bingo board is Animal Families. So for this, I chose Safari Murder Party by Rachel Moore because it has a rhino on the cover. Then I chose XO Ox, A Love Story by Adam Rex because it has a gazelle on the cover. Then we have Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett because it has several cats on the cover. And then there is 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim because there are cranes on the cover. Then we have Flush by Carl Hyacin because it has a fish on the cover. And last, we have Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austin because there is a rabbit on the cover. The next square is Biomes, and this just has to do with the different settings that these books can be placed in. I chose Jungle, Safari Murder Party by Rachel Moore, Desert, The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, Swamp, Chomp by Carl Hyacin, Forest, Uprooted by Naomi Novik, Urban, First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, and Aquatic, Deep Blue by Jennifer Donnelly. The third square on the 4th row is Remix, and this is retellings of other stories. So for the first one, I chose Into the Bright Open by Cherie Dimeline. This is a retelling of The Secret Garden. And then we have Most Ardently by Gabe Cole-Novoa, a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. Then we have So Many Beginnings by Bethany C. Morrow, which is a retelling of Little Women. Then we have Recipe for Persuasion by Sonali Dev, which is a retelling of Persuasion. And then we have Incense and Sensibility by Sonali Dev, which is a retelling of Sense and Sensibility. The next prompt is Food Pyramid, and this is to show books with food on the cover. And these have to be edible human food things. So the first one I picked is Grain or Noodles for A Show for Two by Tashi Bhuiyan. There's little takeout containers of noodles on the cover. For beverage, I picked tea, and I picked A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. Then for protein, I picked steak. I picked The Lamb by Lucy Rose. And then for sweets, I picked cake, which is Pink Lemonade Cake Murder by Joanne Fluke. And lastly, I picked fruit, pomegranate for Bright Red Fruit by Safia El Hilo. Last square for this line on the board is Mother Nature. And so this is different Mother Nature weather events, acts of God or goddess on the cover of books. So for this, I chose Lightning, A Dagger of Lightning by Meredith R. Lyons, Rain, Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon, Tornado, Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World by Ashley Herring Blake, Fog, I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, Snow, Blow Blow by Rob Scotton, and Sunny, Happy Place by Emily Henry. The first prompt in the last row is called It's Your Birthday, and these are all prompts that have to do with your specific birthday. So for the first one, it's birthstone. I was born in January, so that is a garnet birthstone, which is a dark red. So for this, I picked Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab for the dark red on the cover. Next is a book pubbed in my birth month, which is January. So I picked Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Then I had to pick something with the Western Zodiac. I'm a Capricorn, so I picked the book Capricorn by Marianne Williamson. And then I had to pick a book with my Chinese zodiac, which is an ox, even though I'm in January of 1986. 86 is a tiger, but that doesn't start until February. So mine goes with the previous year, which is 85, which was an ox. So I picked XO Ox, A Love Story by Adam Rex. And then we have Birth Flower. One of my birth flowers is the Snowdrop. So I picked A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone because there's lots of snow on the cover. And then we have Birth Tree, which for me is a birch, and I picked Life's a Birch by Annabelle Chase. And lastly, Name Meaning. My name is made up, but my middle name is Irene, and that means peace, so I chose A Separate Peace by John Knowles. Next square is Backlist Authors, and this is books that you've read. It's a book by someone you've read before, but you've been wanting to read their backlist. So this is just a bunch of books by authors I've read before that I love, and I just want to read more of their books. So here we go. Faith, Greater Heights by Julie Murphy. Thief of Night by Holly Black. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab. And Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Shannon McGuire. Next prompt on the board is I must endeavor to acquire these creatures, also known as pocket monster acquisition. Those have different types. So basically you can take the type that you pick and somehow match it to a book. So I picked Flying Type. We Are Also Good at Smiling by Amber McBride because there are butterflies or moths on the cover of that book. Electric Type, Amari and the Metalwork Menace by B.B. Alston because Amari is working some electric magic on the cover. Water, The River of Silver by S.A. Chakraborty because there is a waterfall, I believe, on the cover of that book. Psychic, I picked Oathbound by Tracy Dion because of the psychic magic powers that Bree is doing on the cover of that book. And then Grass, there is grass, clearly, on A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. Our penultimate square has prompt Anthology of Authors, And what you have to do for this one is read an anthology and then read one, two, three, four, five, six books by six of the authors out of that anthology. So the anthology that I have picked is Never Whistle at Night. And it is an indigenous collection of horror stories, I believe. And I'm going to read Into the Bright Open by Cherie Dimaline, A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger, There by Tommy Orange, Race to the Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, Indian Burial Ground by Nick Medina, and If the Dead Belong Here by Carson Faust. The last prompt on the board is Second Chances and Hidden Gems. And this is a way for you to read books that you have tried in the past but didn't get through for whatever reason, or to find stuff based on certain criteria that maybe you wouldn't have picked up otherwise. So for this one, I chose Second Chance Author of Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers because I read a Becky Chambers book and I thought it was okay. I didn't fall in love like everyone else seemed to. And so I think of Becky Chambers as kind of that, like, everyone loves Becky Chambers. And I'm just like, it was fine. So I'm going to try something else and see if I absolutely love it. 1-star review, Black Moon by Kenneth Calhoun. Soft DNF, A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. Under 3.5 rating, Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead. Random Find, Darling Rose Gold by Stephanie Roble. And that is my plan for Herkid 3.0. If you've made it this far, bless you. You can put a check mark in the comments to let me know you were here, and I will talk to y'all again soon. Bye!